We enter as the battle rages. An orcish horde descended upon the town of Gleamrise, only to have been met by the meek resistance of the city guard and a group of brave heroes who stand valiantly before the lives of the townspeople. All around, chaos ensues as sword meets shield, tusk sunders flesh, and streaks of magic arc through the air as gnarled calls of the ravenous creatures echo across the battlefield. Then we see her, an injured Gallifron Emberheart, as she draws upon her ancient powers and summons a ball of flame, before sending it hurtling through the air and into a pack of charging foes. It explodes with a tremendous burst as her fellow party members look over with hope and bolstered resolve. A feeling that doesn't last, as two rusty-tipped arrows thud dully into her chest and her body struggles to stay standing. She looks down at the two protruding arrows, trying to raise her hand that she may break them off and keep fighting, but her arms are too heavy and the darkness comes rushing in too quickly. Gallifron falls to her knees and her head slumps, the orcish warriors now beginning to surround the fallen druid. But in the darkness, there is a sound, a heartbeat. Ba-dum, ba-dum. And then again it beats, ba-dum, ba-dum. She feels the darkness as it gets hotter, and sees the small bead of orange and red appear amidst the nothingness. Without warning, it blossoms into an all-consuming ball of fire, her heart now rapid and fierce, unyielding and relentless. Around her slumped and unmoving body, the orcs draw closer, putting an end to the foolish elf who dares to stand before them. As one raises their jagged axe for a killing blow, Gallifron's head jerks up, her eyes now ablaze with wildfire, and the red golden brilliance coursing through her veins like streams of gold. She screams words of a forgotten age, a primal age, and fire erupts from her body like an infernal tidal wave. As the smoke clears around her, the shapes of her attackers lay burnt and motionless, almost unrecognizable. Her wildfire burning brilliant from within like a golden string, and behind her a large figure moves. It lumbers, the sound of twigs and wood cracking and snapping with each motion, and as it opens its eyes, they too burn with the essence of wildfire. Hey everybody, and welcome to Arcana Uncovered. My name's Alex, and with me is Rowan, and this is the Wildfire Druid. Hey Rowan, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing really good. I'm happy that story went reasonably well.
Excellent, it was pretty good.
Thanks, I'll take it.
Definitely keeping that in. Woo!
Alright, so today we're going to be having a looking over the new Unearthed Arcana class, the Circle of Wildfire, a new druid subclass. So we'll begin just taking a brief overview of the class and seeing what we've got to work with. So let's say, druids are members of the Circle of Wildfire, understand the necessity of destruction, such as how a forest fire promotes growth. And I think we can see that that idea is pretty consistent throughout this. We've got like a solid half and half of destruction-based spells and abilities, and then healing-based spells and abilities. And we can see this with the circle spells, actually. I noticed that pretty quickly. Like, at all levels, I don't know if you noticed this, Rowan, but at each one, you get a destruction spell and then a fire one. Sorry, a healing one. With the exception of maybe the first level, because locate plants or animals isn't the greatest healing spell I've ever heard of.
Free healing spells for druids, they were a great idea.
Yeah. Plant growth's really good, or life's cool, and raise dead is just actually really nice to get for free. Following that, we get what is basically the crux of this class, which is the Summon Wildfire ability, which will allow the druid to expend one of their wild shape uses to summon a wildfire spirit, which is this cool little elemental creature that will progressively kind of grow with the druid, at least to a degree. Its hit points will continue to grow, a little bit extra damage over the top. What else is it?
A bit of everything.
Yeah.
Basically, a bit of everything added on.
It's got its Flame Seed ability, which is basically just, it hurls a mote of fire for 1d6 plus 2, which is pretty nice. And then its really strong ability, in my opinion, is the Fiery Teleportation, which is just literally the spirit and each willing creature of your choice within 5 feet of it teleport up to 30 feet to unoccupied spaces you can see. And then each creature within 10 feet of the space the spirit left must succeed on a dexterity saving throw against your spell save or take 1d6 plus 2 fire damage, which is just nice. It's kind of like the, what's that, Thunderstep? Thunderstep is the teleportation? Yeah, it's just kind of like, boof, disappear, and suddenly fire's everywhere, and you're somewhere else.
It's rather handy.
It is, and as we were talking about before the podcast, as far as we can tell, you and your companions don't have to land in the same space whatsoever, as long as it's within 30 feet of the original starting point. So it could be a really quick way to disperse the party if you needed it.
Yeah, the fast delta split. Just get everyone away from the big bad guy, and then he has to pick one to chase after, or start shooting one guy,
And we didn't mention this before, but the Wildfire Spirit, all its abilities actually come through on the bonus action of the Druid, unless it just takes the dodge action, which you can do for free. So, you can, your action, boom, Wildfire Spirit's up, and bonus action, boom, Fiery Teleportation, you're out. Pretty nice 1-2 punch combo there. Following that, we've got the Enhanced Bond at 6th level. Allows you to basically roll an extra d8 when you're doing either a fire damage spell or a spell that restores hit points. And once again, as far as we can tell, you can add that to your to-hit bonus if you'd rather, instead of your damage, which is, nice kind of flexibility within the class that I quite enjoy. And then
guaranteeing numbers as well, which is handy.
Make sure you're actually, getting that little extra bit of burst. In addition, when you cast a spell with a range other than self, the spell can also originate from you or your Wildfire Spirit, which, I think is really good. It's got a cool little fly speed of 30, so it's not slow.
Yeah.
And yes,
it is only a hover speed, but still, helpful against those pesky wizards who want to counterspell your shit.
Yeah, very true, actually, thinking about that. What else we got? 10th level, you gain the Flames of Life feature. This one I'm a little not sure about, but short version, when a small or larger creature that you can see dies within 30 feet of you or the Wildfire Spirit, can use your reactions to basically light it on fire. And then any creature that touches it can either regain hit points equal to 2d10 plus wisdom, or take fire damage equal to the same, and it's totally your choice. Lasts for a minute. Which is an interesting one. I think it would depend how your Dungeon Master plays its villains. But I suppose I can't really see its damage aspect coming into it overly much.
Neither can I. Besides at low levels, someone might, try and run, like a cleric might try and run over and heal the downed fighter on the enemy team, and then you kind of nail the cleric for a little bit of damage, but I don't see it coming in all that handy.
Actually, a good question there. Do you reckon, if you cast this on a creature that dies, it's now on fire, and the enemy cleric comes over and they're like, we'll say Raise Dead. I think, is Raise Dead an action, or is that an hour?
Action. I think it's an action.
'Cause I'm pretty sure
no, it's an hour. Yeah,
it's an hour. I believe there is Spare the Dying. There is a spell that can bring a creature back to life as an instant if it has died very recently, isn't there?
Yeah, Revivify.
Oh, of course, Revivify. So, if you use your Flames of Life ability on a creature that is then revivified, do you think it would take the 2d10 plus wisdom damage each turn that it's alive?
When a creature you see touches these flames, I suppose it is now a creature because it's back alive, yeah?
Actually, I just realized the inverse of this is probably true as well, which is a little scary. If your paladin goes down, reaction, I light him on fire, and he heals for 2d10 plus wisdom, he's back up.
Well, he's not a creature when he dies. He's an object.
Oh.
As per rules, I believe, per rule.
Oh, of
He's
course.
now an object because he's dead.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
if you then healing word him for 1d4 plus whiz,
Mm.
you'll then get an extra 2d10 plus whiz on top of that.
Although the wording, I suppose,
Plus,
does say dies, so if the creature is simply rendered unconscious, I assume it does not work.
no, I don't think it would.
So, yeah. But
But
in the case you have a Revivify on hand, you can deal a little bit extra damage or a little bit of health to them immediately as soon as they back up. And this lasts for a minute. That's 2d10 plus wisdom each turn.
well, it's an extra 10d10 worth of hit points
That's
for
pretty
your
solid.
day's worth of partying or damage. But 10d10 plus, say, 25. It's nothing to turn your nose up at.
No, I'm trying to remember if the Grave Cleric has a feature. Excuse me, when it comes to creatures that have actually gone down to 0 hit points.
They do maximum healing.
Okay, cool. They don't gain any other.
If they're dead or unconscious, I believe they just max the hit points out.
Yeah, it is just max. That's cool. Alright, following Flames of Life, we have what is the capstone of this subclass, Blazing Endurance. This one, I think, is an absolutely fantastic buff for a druid, especially if you're more of a frontline fighter. The short version is, if you would drop to 0 hit points and wouldn't die outright, you drop to 1 instead, and then you gain 10 hit points equal to 5 times the druid level, and each creature of your choice within 30 feet, so that's a 60-foot area of effect, takes fire damage equal to 2d10 plus druid level. I mean, that's a good bonus. It's a once per day, but...
It's once per day. Basically a better Relentless Endurance.
Yeah, that's the Orcish version, I'm pretty sure. Relentless Endurance? Or is that a fighter? Sorry, Barbarian.
Barbarian. Relentless Rage.
That's it.
Just a once per day, which is neat. It's the same as the Ancient's Paladin, but you get that bonus a little bit of damage on top.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a little bit. It's significant. It's like a fireball going off, nearly.
It genuinely is. I mean, if you if you're at the capstone of your druidry, okay, firstly, how you got dropped to 0 hit points is a little bit of a mystery. I mean, you have infinite wild shapes forever and ever and ever. But, maybe you got stabbed in your sleep or something. That is just, that's 2d10 plus 20 points of fire damage, and you regain 100 temporary hit points. I don't think there's anything else that gives you that much temp hit points at all, in anything.
No, besides wild shapes in the first place.
And even then, they're not temporary hit points. That just outright changes your max hit points. Now, I don't think we'll be going a lot into how this affects a druid. I think we're all quite familiar with the basic druid class features, given that without the subclass, they're quite minimal. You get your full caster, so on and so forth. Your wild shapes, obviously, and then at 18th... What do you get at 18th regarding being a druid? Is that when you can wild shape, cast spells in wild shape form?
Yes.
So, yeah, no, you could... It is quite nice, especially at 14th level, actually. That's the other cool thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the minimum damage you can do is 16 to everything that you choose. It's not even a save, actually, now that I check this. It's just creatures of your choice within 30 feet take damage. End of story.
Well,
that's really good. But no, I think it's quite... They've really gone for this balance between healing and destruction, which, as I think it was Mike Merles pointed out, that's kind of what a druid is in a lot of ways, why they have so many healing spells compared to a cleric or a wizard. They're a good halfway point there.
A wizard, yeah.
Yeah, like wizards don't really gain any healing ability from memory. But a druid certainly has a little bit less than a cleric.
Yeah.
And I think this closes that gap a little bit better,
Oh, of course, yeah.
Which is really quite cool. Okay, so we'll be moving on to the next segment, the meta mechanics. Oh man, I didn't even introduce the first segment, the new Arcana. God damn.
What are you talking about?
Next time. Alright, so let's have a look at the meta mechanics and see how this fits with its erasers, other multi-classes, anything like that. Rowan, what is the smart decisions when I'm building this Wildfire Druid? What do I got to be looking out for?
Well, basically anything, as per usual when building a druid, anything that gives you big bonuses to wisdom is always handy because it adds to your wildfire spirits hit points and all of your features based off your wisdom score. So anything with big buffs, like let me have a look.
Is it Hill Dwarves? Hill Dwarves get the bonus
Hill
to
Dwarf
wisdom.
gives a +1. Aarakocras,
One of the elves, Wood Elves, I think it is.
Wood Elves, Fearbogs, anything like that. Really helpful.
Hmm.
Um, but anything that gives you Wiz and Con also is super handy because you might not be in your uh, what's it called? Wild shape form
Hmm.
all the time as you're casting your spirit out. So just anything that gives you a little bit of extra HP is always handy
Ooh.
as
I
well.
I didn't actually notice this, but at the bottom of the Wildfire Spirit feature, so it manifests and lasts for 1 hour or until it is reduced to 0 hit points. I didn't notice though. It's also the Wildfire Spirit is dissipated if you use your Wild Shape again. Now I'm not sure whether that specifically refers to wild shaping into an animal or simply resummoning a Wildfire Spirit. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. A lot of this is very non-particular about a lot of things and
mm,
non-specific.
got that
More than
open-ended quality, which
yeah, but
which is good. Allows a lot of flexibility, especially with players and DMs of different styles and so forth.
does say rather than assuming a V swarm, but as far as I'm concerned, you can wild shape and then use your wildfire.
Yeah, no, those as far as I read as well, there was nothing that really particularly stops you doing that. Yeah, because druids regain all features they have while not in animal form. So presumably, summon wildfire would be one of those that you get to keep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, and
Um,
I did notice, that list. You've got your wood elves, fearbolgs, aarakocras, and hill dwarves, all of which, thematically speaking, have quite like a connection to varying degrees to the land around them. Dwarves a little bit less so. Wood elves, fearbolgs quite heavily, which is really cool.
well, they do. Dwarves do have connection to the earth around them, but they're usually trying to dig it up for what's inside it a lot of the time. But
Hmm.
that's beside the point.
Yeah, no, definitely. Shout out to all the dwarvish fans out there. They're probably some of the most down to earth people.
Woo! One other class I did think of was Tieflings, because they get access to Flames of Phlegethos whenever they're casting fire spells, but you can do that with any fire-based caster as you wish, sorcerers, wizards, clerics even, if you want. But the feat does not apply to any of the features, sadly.
Ah,
And same with Elemental Adept on
oh,
top of that.
Elemental Adept does not apply to it.
No, not to features. So they're all to your spellcasting, but if you're using the spirit and you're standing there in your druidy self, casting fireballs, it's always nice to get that extra damage in.
Mm. Um, Draconic Bloodline. There was a feature regarding that. Cast a spell that deals damage type associated to your dragon ancestry. Add your charisma modifier. No, that doesn't work for most of the features as well. Sorry,
No.
listeners, looking at the Draconic Sorcerer, seeing if you could kind of bridge that gap between them to gain that a little bit of extra oomph to your fire. Sadly, not.
No, sadly not. A lot of it stops that feature, the features crossing over
Mm.
to stop anything super broken coming into it.
Yeah, well,
Um,
doesn't hurt to look.
no, it doesn't.
Okay, but So, as we do, as you can see with the Circle of Wildfire spell list, though, you do get like a few extra fire-based spells thrown into your Druid learning list, as well as Firebolt at second level, which is quite strong. So your Elemental Adapt still could come into those part, though.
Yeah, of course. And just being able to negate fire resistance when you're casting your Flame Strike, Fireball, Scorching Raids as well, is always really, really handy, as it is one of the most common resistances out there.
Yep.
That's the one problem I see with the class overall, but we can go over that later.
It's just the sheer resistances that you actually would come
Yeah,
up against, that's true.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
But I do think the D8 from Enhanced Bond is one of the best things about this entire class.
Interesting.
Getting that average +5 damage, +5 to your hit rolls, +5 to your healing is really, really strong.
Yeah. Ooh. Totem Spirit. That's the 10-minute spell you place down anytime a creature walks through it and starts their turn. They gain 2d6 health, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does
Healing Spirit, yeah.
Healing Spirit. Sorry, not Totem Spirit. Healing Spirit. Do you think that extra d8 would count on that, or is it only on like the first instance when you actually cast a spell?
I think it'll be the first instance.
Ah.
Because, one roll of the spell when you cast it. So
Which
I think someone would have to be in it as well when you cast it. Otherwise it wouldn't proc, because the D8 proc is when you cast the spell.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think the same effect works with Investiture of Flame? I'm not sure if you're overly familiar with the spell, but one of them is you become wreathed in flames and you deal damage to the surrounding area. While the spell doesn't directly target a creature and deal damage to them, it would deal damage, almost immediately upon casting. That would probably proc, wouldn't it? Yeah?
I would assume so, yeah. Basically, any effect that, as you cast it and it affects some other creature, be it healing or a fire spell, it would immediately give you that D8 to healing or to damage or to hit if it's your firebolt. From what I can tell, as the wording on the enhanced bond is a bit wacky and could be anything.
This is true. And as far as the wording is, I don't believe that you would get to roll that damage die again on a critical hit.
No. Oh.
Yeah, because it's just strange, because it seems as though you roll the d8 in an abstract and then add that number. So you may deal 1d6 damage, but you get to add 1d8 worth. So somehow you could roll like an 8 on your 1d6 total.
But the way that it's worded is so weird. It could just act like a paladin smite, and when you choose, if you crit, you get to WD8 as with a smite. Just get to, oh yeah, I want that extra damage now because I've critted.
Well, I mean, you can do it any time you want. Like there's no cost to it. It's not a once per short rest thing. It's simply whenever you cast a spell that deals fire damage or restores hit points while your Wildfire Spirit is summoned. That is the caveat, I suppose. But given that a Wildfire Spirit lasts for an hour, and you get wild shapes back on a short rest, I mean, you could use that quite a lot, honestly.
Yeah, you could. You should be resting relatively quickly, because I assume every fight you're going to have this Wildfire Spirit out to reap the most benefits. And without that, you need to be resting every hour, because you only get 2 for the entire day just to get Wildfire Spirits. That's without yourself wild shaping. So it could be tricky, but you'd need to be resting 2-3 times a day through your adventuring day, I'd assume.
Actually, which does raise another question. Once you've hit the epitome of druidry, you've defeated everyone and you're level 20. Do you think, based on the way that the rulings have worked for druid wild shapes previously, Now that you're level 20 and you have unlimited wild shapes, do you think you can simply just keep that wildfire spirit 24/7 at that point?
Per raw, obviously, you can just spam that out. Yeah, have it constantly out. But people walking in the streets probably not going to be a big old fan of the walking fire spirit that's walking around you. Yeah. I don't know. It's up to the DM, but you might be walking through the streets with straw thatched roofs, and the spirit might just be setting everything on fire.
Which would be inconvenient for most parties,
Yes.
but
And
not,
with
not,
the
not
when
unheard
you
of.
summon it, it is it doesn't care. I'm trying to remember the English for the word, but it is indiscriminate about what it damages. So every time you cast this thing, like summon this spirit, it will just set fire to a bunch of stuff. If you're in the middle of a dry forest and you summon this, you might not walk back out because Wildfire Druid does not give you resistance to fire. Might be something to add in, but it's pretty strong, I believe, at this point anyway.
It is very strong. And Investiture of Flame is a druid spell, which does give you that resistance later on.
Yeah.
Although it is good to note that the Wildfire Spirit has a flat immunity to fire damage.
Yeah, it doesn't care if it gets set on fire. Just smart.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of having a look, in terms of builds, assuming you'd go like a Firbolg, Dwarf, Elf, something along those lines, take your Elemental Adapt probably at 4th if you get a chance, or at 1st if your DM allows feats at 1st. What other kind of things would we be looking towards this build going up, and is there any multi-classes you think would be beneficial to it?
Don't have any multi-classes off the top of my head, as most things don't multi-class well with Druid, but could be a flaming, raging bard, Druid barbarian. Have a lot of fun being on fire. Maybe even go Zealot Barb and be worship a god of fire and just burn everything that you see fit. I think that would be rather fun. I can see myself doing that because I am a maniac when it comes to playing D&D.
The other really cool thing that actually thinking about that is you go into battle as your barbarian, you've got your wildfire spirit there. That's like an extra dash bonus action for free at least once. Even if it's just to get quicker to the other side of the battle, that could be helpful to the barbarian.
Yeah. I think another thing that I did think of was a ranger beast companion, and then you have 2 companions running around you for some hours of the day, which would be rather fun, I think.
Oh man, it's basically a circle of the shepherd at that point.
Well, yeah, but this you could have like say a wild boar, and you're riding around on a boar, and you got this flaming spirit chasing after you the entire time.
Which is so good. In terms of multi-class, because clerics are also wisdom-based, wisdom con. So, I mean, like, stat-wise, you're already pretty much where you want to be. I've never actually tried to build a cleric druid, but thinking about it in an abstract sense, I don't see an immediate reason not to.
No, but that's the same with druid in general, but you don't multi-class into druid just because it makes sense a lot of the time. But I don't believe there's any fire-based clerics out there off the top of my head, besides, I think, Forge Cleric get a few spells, but...
Yeah, this is very true. I've still got eyes on this Grave Domain Cleric here, just for extra cantrips, and Path to the Grave, as we all know, is one of the greatest channel divinities ever.
Oh yeah, that invulnerability damage. Oh,
Ooh,
and you do
nice.
get that D8. That D8 from your healing will be maxed out if they're dropped, and you have 6 levels of Druid in.
I mean, you can hit the 14th level capstone and then put the other 6 straight into cleric. I mean, there's nothing to particularly stop you to get that Sentinel at Death's Door ability as well.
No, but then you will miss all your high level spells, which is the insane part of being a full caster at that point.
The other thing that you would miss is potent spell casting, which is the wisdom modifier to cleric. It's cleric cantrips. I was going to say, your Flame Bolt would be so good. Wisdom plus to like however many D10 it is, plus that extra D8 on top of that, just as a cantrip. That's nice.
Oh, always.
Okay. But no, in terms of the build, I think the general thing is find something wisdom based, as you would with a lot of druids, and pretty much see it through to the end. There are a couple alternatives that you can pursue, but at the end of the day, druid is a very strong raw class, and the wildfire spirit I think complements it really well.
Yeah, that's solid overview. I'd say I wouldn't want to put anything over that. Yeah, it complements all your healing, all your damage spells are bumped up. Um, yeah, it's a really nice, well-rounded class. A few wordy things need to get sorted out on the class to clarify a bunch of stuff.
Mm,
Um, but you can't forget that the Wildfire Spirit can just be hit and it can just be killed.
this is true. It
Is
does
it
only have
only?
an AC of 13, so
Yeah, and that doesn't go up, I don't
no,
believe.
no, it
No,
does
it doesn't.
not. Oof.
Which
But
is rather brutal, but who knows? Maybe you got a kind DM who gives you a few items that bumps up your spirit so it becomes medium and gets a bunch more hit points and maybe some AC. I think
that
that'd
would
be
be
a really
cool.
cool thing to do. We'd
Mm.
have, by level 20, you've got this 20-foot tall flaming spirit that walks around the battlefield.
Right?
Throwing fire at everything would be rather cool to see.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. And now we move on to our final segment, character uncovered, and we're going to take a look at the thematics of it, and how you can build this newfound character that is just waiting there for you. All you have to do is get it. So having a little brainstorm, thinking about how you can, where the origin of this can come from. And I mean, the obvious one is simply, either you were born in a wildfire, which is insane to think about. Living in Australia, we know quite what those are. We know what bushfires are. They're insane. And so the idea of being born in one very much could kind of lean you towards this, or maybe it chose you because of that reason. But a simpler version, simply maybe you were burned at some point in your life. You found yourself, surrounded by flames on all sides and nowhere to escape. And then, as the flames is like washed over wherever it is you were stuck, you find yourself untouched, as the wildfire spirit has chosen you or has spared you from this fate to do its bidding. Now, going further, playing around with thematics on this, another idea, perhaps the spirit isn't just a generic, small elemental creature of any chaotic alignment. Perhaps it is a deceased family member who died in such a fire and has come to look over you, or even an ancestor going back generations and generations. Um, there's no like real reason that couldn't be true. Or another one, perhaps this wildfire spirit chose you for reasons only known to your dungeon master to lead to many plot hooks down the road. It could really go so many ways, which I really liked about it. Um, Another one, if you wish to take more of a grim look at things, perhaps you have been cursed and you are now haunted by this wildfire spirit. Maybe it wasn't a choice, and it's something you've actually just been burdened with. In fact, maybe the spirit is malevolent and it's hungry. It needs to consume more so it can continue burning, and it just continually drives you further and further. And then there is another idea that I had, but this one would require changing a couple thematics, so I will come back to it later. Did you have any origin ideas as to how this class could work, Ron?
Um, just a few stray thoughts that have come around. Like maybe as you're a druid, it's the spirit of a forest that's been burnt down and manifested into some form of elemental that wants you to reform its forest. And yeah, that's all I got.
No, like actually, that's really good because again, there are different ways you could deal with that. Once again, the spirit could be malevolent and vengeful because it was destroyed, whereas another one might be simply hopeful and wishes to rebuild what was lost. So you can go, like, in terms of where to begin, there's quite a bunch of choices, although at least mine personally are pretty much all surrounding the idea that there was a fire at some point, and that has come back to haunt you.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to haunt,
No,
so
not
to speak,
haunt.
all the time. But like it's any chaotic alignment. So it could just be chaotic neutral. It could just be a fire went through, burnt your house down, and now that spirit went, I like this small child. He seems pretty fun. I'm gonna go be with him and watch over him, and maybe he'll regrow the forest for me, so I can come back and burn it all again for a laugh. That's probably a little more evil, but oh well.
But no, and you're right. Following that, we kind of got some personality ideas of how this contact with the wildfire spirit may have driven your character, and the various different paths you could go. I mean, thinking of it from the chaotic side of the alignment spectrum, people don't know when a wildfire is coming, and nor do they really know where, from where it comes. But what they know is they should run from it, and that they should run from this thing. But they also in turn know that as it has passed, the earth becomes more fertile and crops will grow more readily. It's kind of a, that's the mechanic basics of the fact that this is a life and destruction class. That's just simply how fire works in this case. And then, from that chaotic thing, if you went down to an evil alignment, you are the destroyer. You are the bringer of death and fear, and your wake is nothing but ash. But on the other hand, you have the good aligned thing, in that there's the circle of life that must be upheld, and things must end, that they may be reborn. That you kind of have almost that Phoenix-esque element to a character you've built this way, where, yes, it's still chaotic because there's destruction and violence, but it's done with the knowledge that there is a new life to be reborn through that destruction.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. You have on the other flip side of that is a lawful alignment, in that nature never yields, but rather it ebbs and flows like the tide. And from life comes the fuel for flames, but from the ashes, new life is born. And again, for an evil-aligned character, you are the harbinger of the end of this time, and a new world is born through you. You can always build a god complex straight out of that. And then on the good side of that, you can believe that, I must allow others to grow, and when their time to fall comes, I must see that they are returned to nature, and the cycle may continue, to keep that balance and harmony. And so, it's got so many thematic personality ideas for this class. It can go...
Too many.
It does.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, please. Oh. But yeah, no, I love it because the class itself is very nicely rounded, and while it can go like pretty much any direction, if from chaotic evil to lawful good, you can build this druid. And I think that's having that versatility and that player input, really, which is something I know the designers were really keeping in mind, which is part of the reason the wording is a little bit funny in places, to have that fluidity.
Yeah, I think the longer that fifth has been going on, the more flexible things are becoming. Stepping away from 3.5 and Pathfinder, that sort of thing.
Oh, exactly right.
Basically, the longer the game's running, the more flexible we're going to get. The things we're going to get.
Yeah, and the playtesting has so far shown that. That's one of the things people have really responded well to, is that ability to create their own aesthetic, to create their own thematics on things, because as I think it was Mike Mills actually, or no, it was an Unearthed podcast that I was listening to earlier. The designers said it doesn't change the mechanics how your spell looks, and so you can make it look like anything. It doesn't break the game if your magic missile is a series of flying exploding pumpkins, because at the end of the day they still do what a magic missile does. And following that train of thought, we have alternatives to thematics, and this was one of the big ones I was thinking of. And Rowan, please tell me why this is a bad idea and I shouldn't do it.
Alrighty, so I'm here.
What is the cost of changing the fire damages and the wildfire spirit into more of an necrotic based damage type, so that you definitively have a life and death druid, healing spells, necrotic spells? Why shouldn't I do this?
Why shouldn't you? First thing off the top of my head is obviously all fire resistances. There's not many things out there resistant to necrotic damage, so you're already immediately, like across a campaign's worth of fights, going to be dealing more damage. But you could basically rewrite half of the stuff, so half of it does fire damage, half of it does necrotic damage, or half of it does necrotic and radiant, or necrotic or life. I don't know what to say. Like necrotic damage, but then you get to reflavor the spirit, so it's not a fire spirit. It's more some leech form of beast, or something like that. But it doesn't hurt. It
may not be necessary, but it doesn't hurt.
It's probably not necessary. It doesn't hurt it all that much. It doesn't really matter depending on... I've switched my track halfway through the sentence. Overall, you could do it basically with any class out there. Switch a damage type because you want to have a cold spirit, and it's a giant snowflake that follows you around.
I'm on
really
board.
Matter
I'm
depending
on board.
It's all up to your DM, really. If your DM's happy and the people that you're playing with are happy for you to have this cold spirit and all your stuff that's fire-related is cold, in the end, doesn't matter if everyone at the table's happy.
Yeah, and that's a big take-home message. Another thing that you would have to talk to your dungeon master, and probably the other people at the table about as well, is if you wanted to make your spirit sentient. Now, it has an int of 13, but it's not its own independent thing. It doesn't have a language it can speak, and when left to its own devices, it solely will do the dodge action. So the question then is, is there... Could you have it as more of like an actual companion that is just summonable, if you will?
I think you could. I think it's like the Beastmaster, Beastmaster.
Yep.
In that raw and not the UA version, it will only stand there and take the dodge action if it's not told anything. But I like to believe it's like their pet dog when you're playing a Beastmaster. It has its own personality. It does all its stuff on its own. You don't need to tell it what to do. And therefore, personally, I see the spirit as something like the same. It's some sentient being that's there with you, willingly, of its own accord.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be this wildfire druid.
Exactly. Although I think, with that being said, if maybe you don't feel like, if your DM is not cool running that as almost an NPC with its own language, you could also give it like an empathic ability. So at the very least, it can still kind of have that closer bond with your character, that they can share that those feelings and have a better understanding of one another, which I think could be really cool.
It can't communicate. It doesn't say it can speak. It just says it understands all your languages, but there's nothing stopping you from it showing emotion.
Exactly. And yeah, becoming a little more than just a generic wildfire spirit.
Yes, better. Yeah, something more generic than just a ball of fire that you can summon. Yeah,
And I think once again, Wizards have kind of kept it very open, as it just says. Where is it? You determine the spirit's appearance. Some spirits take the form of a humanoid figure made of gnarled branches covered in flame, while others look like a beast wreathed in flame. You can have something that looks almost akin to a hellhound. You could have basically a blight that is on fire. Or hell, you could have a phoenix. There's absolutely nothing to stop your wildfire spirit looking like a phoenix. That's cool as hell. There is
or a smaller version of you on fire that follows you around.
Oh man, that's the best one yet. It's exactly
I'm not talking about you, Alex. I'm talking about the character.
You have a small representation of your dungeon master that follows you through the streets. That's so good. Actually, one other thing that I was thinking is rather than using it as a wildfire spirit as its own entity, was the idea of treating it as almost a wild shape unto itself. So instead of summoning it, you almost gain an alternate form in which you gain some of those abilities and appearances. Therein lies a good question, though. You do lose a few things. You can't flank anyone anymore, and you lose the sheer ability of the extra maneuver, the extra person being somewhere else to do something else.
Yeah.
But
the enhanced bond spell slinging, which I forgot to mention before.
Mm-hmm.
You do lose that aspect as well.
True. But depending on how you balanced it, you would probably get the resistance to fire. Maybe not an immunity, but certainly a resistance would be reasonable. And I would say that you would gain the fly speed, the dark vision, and then it's 2 different actions as bonus actions. Seeing as that's what you would be doing anyway. Talk with your DM, figure out anything else. But on the other hand, it would be cool as hell in the middle of a fight and you're like, nope, I'm done with this wild shape. Suddenly, fire consumes you. 2 giant wings of 2 phoenix wings spread from out your back. Fire is roaring from your eyes and you're ready to go. And you can teleport 30 feet. That's cool.
Yeah.
Which I think is nice. You can also probably change the thematic a little bit on how your Blazing Endurance works. I have a note here that just says Explodo Demon Style. Oh, I remember what that note means now.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing, instead of you could have it as you could get rid of the drop to 1 instead of 0 and just replace it with extra explosion damage like a Balor.
Yeah, you could, but that's rather mean.
As soon as you're reduced to 0, you explode.
Yeah, and your character's probably dead too because he just exploded.
Okay, maybe not that thematic, but I'm all on board for the alternate form and combining the wildfire spirit with your character. Oh, goodness gracious.
There is nothing stopping you from just having this little fire bead on your shoulder that follows you around, talks into your ear, that only you can hear, and then when you use the wild shape,
it just wreaths
when you expend it, it wreaths you in flames and it shoots all its fire from you. This is how you you can flavor it that way without having it literally integrated into you.
Yeah, that's entirely true. It is a small elemental, so technically it can be in the same square as you, can't it? In the middle of a combat, if you're a medium creature, can a small creature share a square with you? Or is it only
I think
tiny
3.5
ones?
maybe, but I think it's only tiny.
Ah, damn. That's unfortunate. The other last thematic I thought about here was the idea if you did pursue it and you switch all your things out for necrotic damage, you're now a druid of life and death. Your wildfire spirit is now like this wreathed, shadowy, gaunt figure. I think your blazing endurance would be cool as hell, as it deals necrotic damage, and it's like it saps the life out of the things around you to give you this temporary bonus of undeath.
That'd be cool.
Right? Thank you. I think that's great. But no, all in all, this is a very well balanced, in my opinion, and very flexible Unearthed Arcana subclass, and probably one of my favorites yet. It's not the heroism paladin, but it's all right. We can't all be hero paladins.
I think it's very well rounded. I think the enhanced bond D8 probably needs to become a D6 or even a D4, because that enhanced bond D8 probably needs to become a D6 or even a D4, because that basically having a +5 to all healing, on average +5 to all healing, all your fire damage is ridiculous at this point. Especially if you're just firing off cantrips. +5 damage, +5 to hit. Well, really neat.
Having a quick think. Time for a second so I can type without having to worry about this. Circle of the Moon. Trying to remember what their ability is at the same level. So I'm like, it could be reasonably balanced comparatively. Oh, no. No, it's not. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm like, I haven't seen anything like that D8. Like, imagine if you had a fighter that could add a D8 every time it swung, its sword. My God.
I
just
was
for free.
I was quickly checking to see if Circle of the Moon had something at 6 that was just as good, but that's where it gets its primal strike, the magical attacks for overcoming resistance. So, no, it is a bit stronger than its other counterparts, but hell, I don't think it breaks the class. I think it pushes it in some ways, but as your campaign continues, your 20th level heroes, you've saved the universe from everything. The extra D8's not going to change too many things over the course of that journey.
Over the entire course, probably done a few things. I'd say it'd be like
saves.
Yeah, exactly. Like if your fireball did that extra 8 damage to all, say, 6 creatures in this thing, and that extra 8 damage was enough for your wizard in the party when he cast his fireball to clean them all out outright, because they all had 70 hit points instead of 60 or whatever.
It is. On the other hand, I personally think, if I was the player in the situation, I'd roll my fireball, and then I roll the extra D8 of damage, and my DM says, hey, listen, you killed them all, but I'll tell you only killed them by like 3 points of damage. I'd feel pretty clutch.
Exactly.
And I think that's a very nice feeling. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the new Unearthed Arcana Circle of Wildfire Druid class. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you think? So next week, we'll be looking at... You know what, actually, can we look at the Paladin? My favorite new Paladin?
Yeah, or so cool. the thing that you hate the most, the Onomancy Wizard.
Oh, that can just get...
I vote that one.
Alright. Okay, well, we'll have a look at one or the other. It'll be a surprise. I've been Alex, usually a Dungeon Master, but not today. I'm just your really good friend, and alongside me is Rowan Douglas, your other really good friend, but not really as good as me. So,
fuck off.
Thank you everybody for tuning in, and hopefully your Wildfire Druids go out and kick some ass. Good luck, and see you next time on Arcana Uncovered.
Yeah,
Bye.
Send Alex an email about your suggestions at here.
Yeah, exactly.
Plug it, Alex. Yeah.
Oh man, you can find me on Twitter at TableGameSmith. If you happen to tell me what you'd like to see covered, any of the older Unearthed Arcanas that you haven't seen already, let me know, and I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.
Ciao. Bye again. Love.
Hey, that went great. And I recorded it. How could we lose?
Yay! We recorded it! First time!
First time, best time. Boom! Did it.